Hola, mi gente. Welcome back to another episode of Quiero, Dinero, the podcast. I am Jannese Torres, your host. And on today's episode, we're going to be talking to a 46-year-old teacher who wants to retire early at the age of 57. And we're going to find out if she can actually do it. If you want to ask me your question, head over to the episode description. All right. So today's question comes from Gabby, writing in from Whittier, California, and she's listening to the show on Apple Podcasts. Reminder, if you love the show and you listen on Apple Podcasts, please leave a rating and a review. It's the best way for the show to continue to grow and reach more and more badass mujeres who want to get financially lit. Okay? All right. So Gabby's question is, I'm a 46-year-old teacher who wants to retire at 57. I learned about investing during quarantine and I have now maxed out my 403b for 4 years, $165,000, and opened and maxed out a Roth IRA, $33,500 during these years. Since I want my money to grow as much as possible, all of my money is invested in VTSAX, other index funds, and zero bonds. How can I make the most of the years that I have left before retiring? How much should I have in bonds? I've also invested some of the money that I had in a savings account in a brokerage account, $65,000. I have an emergency fund and money set aside for home renovations, and my only debt is my mortgage. First of all, can we get some snaps? Round of applause for Gabby. Gabby, my love, you're in a fantastic position for a 46-year-old who's planning to retire at 57, especially as a late start investor. Okay. You have done a lot of heavy lifting already, like maxing out your tax advantage accounts, choosing low cost index funds, building a brokerage account, and maintaining an emergency fund. So now let's talk about how we're going to optimize for this next decade to make your retirement a reality. Number one, I want you to continue to supercharge your contributions while you still can. So you mentioned that you've been maxing out your 403b and your Roth IRA. Amazing. Chef's kiss, honey. Please keep doing that. And do not forget, you are eligible for catch-up contributions starting at the age of 50. So what does that mean? For your 403b, you can contribute an additional $7,500 a year on top of the $23,000 limit. And with your Roth IRA, you can contribute an extra $1,000 a year on top of the $7,000 limit. Now, obviously, these limits change every year, so make sure that you follow the IRS guidelines at irs.gov. They tend to issue them somewhere around November, so keep an eye on those limits and as they change. So by doing these catch-up contributions, this will give you an additional $8,500 a year in tax advantage space that you can invest starting in 4 years, okay? So plan to use that opportunity once you turn 50. Now, let's talk about your target retirement number and a withdrawal strategy. So since you're retiring before age 59 and a half, you want to think of your portfolio in 3 buckets. Bucket number 1 is years 1 through 5 of your retirement. This is where you want access to stable funds for early withdrawals. Bucket number 2 is years 6 through 10, where your accounts are still growing, but you are investing slightly less aggressively. And then bucket number 3 is long term. So this is growth focused, mostly stock investments. Now, let's work backwards. The first thing that you want to do is estimate what your annual expenses are going to be in retirement. And an easy way to do that is by taking that number and multiplying it by 25, assuming a 4% withdrawal rate. So for example, if you need $60,000 a year in retirement, $60,000 times 25 means $1.5 million. That becomes your target retirement number. Okay. Now, let's talk more about taking withdrawals before the age of 59 and a half from your retirement accounts. First and foremost, your Roth contributions, those are always withdrawable without penalty. And so you can plan to withdraw some of those in the years before you turn 59 and a half, and your brokerage doesn't have any restrictions. If you wanted to take money out of your 403b without penalties before the age of 59 and a half, there is a legal loophole that you can take advantage of. This is called the 72T rule, which is named after IRS Code Section 72T. This actually allows you to take money out of your tax-deferred retirement accounts, like a 403b or a traditional IRA, before age 59 and a half without paying the 10% early withdrawal penalty. However, there is a catch. You have to commit to taking out substantially equal periodic payments, aka SEPPs, for at least 5 years or until you turn 59 and a half, whichever is later. So, why would you potentially want to use this strategy? Well, because you're planning to retire at 57 and your 403b is likely going to be your biggest bucket of money. So this method gives you a way to access those funds before 59 and a half penalty free. It allows you to stretch your funds without raiding your Roth IRA or your brokerage too fast. And it will help you avoid taking big lump sums that will trigger high taxes. So it's basically a legal loophole for you to get your own money out early with the IRS's blessing. Now, there are a couple pros and cons to this method. Pros, there is no early withdrawal penalty. You can access your tax deferred funds in early retirement, and it gives you some flexible planning options if you're an early retiree. But a couple of cons. You must take withdrawals for at least 5 years or until 59 and a half, which is later. So you'd have to do it essentially from age 57 until 62 and a half. Once you start, you cannot change the amount. The withdrawals are still taxed as income, and the rules are a little complicated. So you need precision to avoid IRS penalties. Now, if you don't want to commit to this method or you want more flexibility, you can take a look at your Roth contributions. Like I mentioned, they can be withdrawn tax-free at any time, not the earnings, but the contributions. Your brokerage has no restrictions, so you can use it as a buffer. And you can also investigate a Roth conversion ladder. This is another way to get funds out of your 403b and IRA before 59 and a half without penalties, but it does require a 5-year wait per conversion. So I definitely recommend reassessing around the age of 55 with a financial advisor to simulate your withdrawal plan just to make sure that you are taking the best approach. Now, let's talk a little bit about your asset allocations, right? So, right now, you are 100% invested in equities, which is VTSAX. That is fine while you're still accumulating, especially with more than 10 years left before you retire. But as you near retirement, you want to slowly start adding intermediate term bonds or bond funds like VBTLX or BND 3 to 5 years before retirement. You can also consider a glide path where from the ages of 46 to 52, you're invested in 90% stocks and 10% bonds, or just 100% through on stocks. And then when you turn 53, you can gradually start moving to an 80-20 or a 70-30 split. And I would do that up until retirement, right? So taking that glide method helps you reduce the danger of your portfolio dropping right before you retire. Let's talk a little bit about tax planning. Now, in your early retirement years before Social Security or your required minimum distributions kick in, your income will likely be lower. So, that is actually the perfect time to convert some of your 403b money or your traditional IRA money into Roth money. So, you can pay taxes now at a lower rate and then enjoy tax free growth later. Now, let's talk about your brokerage account. So, I like to call my brokerage my early retirement bridge. This account is key because it's not taxed when you withdraw. Only the gains are taxed. And you can actually use it to bridge the gap between 57 and 59 and a half when you can start tapping into your other accounts without any complicated rules. All right, let's talk about your mortgage. So you only have your mortgage as your debt. Fantastic. You want to consider, do you want to pay this off early? Is this the house you're planning on retiring in? Are you going to sell it? Like, what is the plan for the house? You may want to consider paying the house off early if you're planning on retiring in the home. If you're not, then I would start investigating, like, where are we going to live in retirement? That's a big factor, right? You may want the liquidity more than a paid off house. So let's summarize your to-do list. In order to make this a reality, I want you to continue maxing out your 403b and your Roth IRA. I want you to track your FIRE number and think about that bucket strategy of those different funds that you're going to have you guide you through up until you're eligible for penalty-free withdrawals and Social Security. You want to plan a stock to bond glide path starting around the age of 52. Start learning about Roth conversion ladders. You want to consider tax loss harvesting in your brokerage account, and you can work with a financial advisor for that. Make sure that you are diversifying your portfolio outside of full stock investments as you start to near retirement. And I highly recommend talking to a fee-only fiduciary advisor around age 52 to 55 to double check your path and conversion plans just to make sure that your early retirement funding is locked and loaded. All right. Gabby, good luck on your early retirement plan. I am rooting for you, and I'm very inspired to hear everything that you've been able to accomplish in just 4 years. I think this is a great reminder for everybody that's listening that it is never too late to start. And the best thing that you can do for future self is get present self to get their shit together. All right, y'all. If you want my help to create your financial freedom plan and learn how you can achieve your investing goals, book an investor power hour with me. You'll see the link in the episode description. We'll sit together for an hour and I will literally tell you what you need to do in order to reach your investment and financial freedom plans. Looking forward to working with you. And until next time, stay poderosa.